6:05, the morning after, incredible joy and jubilation turns into tragedy in this town. You know, yesterday was a day that we all anticipated, have been excited for since Sunday night. We've been fortunate enough to have 3 of these over the last 4 years, going back to 2020. And we were getting used to it. We were getting comfortable. We were like, we got this. We know how to put on these parades all week long. We talked to law enforcement every day this week, and what did we hear? Every time they do one of these parades, they feel more confident in keeping all of us safe, secure, and protected. And then yesterday ended with ultimate tragedy, with now 1 person confirmed dead, 22 people suffering gunshot wounds in a shooting that took place moments after the Chiefs parade and rally ended at Union Station. Children's Mercy has confirmed it's treating 12 patients, 11 children, and hospital officials saying all of the children, thank goodness, are expected to recover. But they did range in ages 6 to 15. As someone who has a 5-year-old and talked all week about how I'd love to be down there with Claire and bring her down and, you know, have a great time and share that experience with her. I can't fathom what parents in this town are going through right now in the wake of that. I can't even imagine. And I saw it on the lawn of the National World War I Museum and Memorial. The strollers, the kids, the footballs, everything and anything that kids would be doing and having a great time doing was out in full force yesterday. Let's be clear, this was a family affair. Now, I know, the players were cursing at times, which didn't love. Story for another day. But this was a family affair. I heard from so many of you on social media who are down there with your kids, trying to have this experience, have this moment with them, sharing the celebration of the one thing that still brings us all together, and that's sports. And it ended the way it ended. And that's with people fleeing for their lives, not understanding the chaos that had ensued yesterday, and also not being able to reach their loved ones. Because as we know, cell service was and always is an absolute mess at these things. So my heart breaks for everybody in this community, including those of you who were most impacted by what took place. If you were down there, this morning is the morning that we will be hearing from you. We will be talking to you. I know many of you have reached out on social media, have wanted to share your story, and that's what we are going to be doing this morning on KCMO Talk Radio, along with talking to the mayor of Kansas City. Quinton Lucas is scheduled to be here in his usual 7:30 slot today, the morning after. Now, what more do we know? Well, not much more than we knew last night. We do know that there are 3 individuals in custody. The initial reports gave us 2. There are now 3. You may have seen some of those pictures, videos circulating last night, as I did on social media, but we do not know who they are, and we do not know what kind of backgrounds and criminal history and anything else like that they may have. I have my suspicions, absolutely. But until I have the information, it would be wrong of me to make any assumptions. So I'm just not going to do that this morning, because what you're seeing on the, godforsaken apps of X and Facebook and so many others is people using this to fit their preferred political narrative. You're seeing it in local media, the Kansas City Star. You're seeing it on social media. You're seeing it in portions of national media. And yes, you're seeing it from 2-bit huckster politicians. It's gross. It's disgusting. It's disturbing. These people can't let the blood dry. And they can't wait for any single facts before they start pushing their preferred narrative on to victims in Kansas City and using victims in Kansas City for their own political purposes. It's absolutely disgusting. What I do know is this. This is not new to Kansas City. If you've been in this town, if you've covered news in this town, if you've lived in this town and listened to this show for any period of time, this is not new to Kansas City. So while I thought leadership in this town yesterday did a very good job, an admirable job, from Police Chief Stacey Graves to Mayor Lucas and the face they put on for not just the city, but for the entire world. When I heard the police chief say this, I did have to disagree.
This is not Kansas City. I'm angered by what happened, but I want you to know that the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department and all the law enforcement officers that were there today, that were serving and protecting, did the best that they could, and I'm so proud of them that they ran into danger, getting 2 people into custody, and at the same time rendering life-sustaining aid to those victims.
Now, she's absolutely right. The men and women in law enforcement in this community, and not just KCPD, but from area law enforcement, we know there were 800 law enforcement officials around the city yesterday from all area agencies. They all deserve a pat on the back, a hug. They deserve everything and anything, all the accolades we can give them. And that was the best of Kansas City shining. There's no doubt about it. But the worst of Kansas City was also on full display. Because we've seen this now, Crown Center a few weeks ago, in and around Power and Light. We've seen crime continue to impact great events and great venues in this town. We are coming off a record year for homicides in Kansas City, Missouri. While many other major American cities were trending down, Kansas City has not. So I can't sit here and tell you this isn't Kansas City. Now, the best of Kansas City was also on display yesterday. There's no doubt about that. But for far too long, in too many instances, in public places where innocent people are trying to live their lives, we have dealt with crime. And we have dealt with violence, and we have dealt with shootings. So I can't sit here and say that this is not Kansas City. Because in many ways, the best of Kansas City and the worst of Kansas City over the last half a decade collided. The best being the Kansas City Chiefs and the unification that they bring to this town, and the worst being the violent crime problem that remains the underbelly of everything that happens in this town. 913-408-7957. We are set to hear from the mayor in just over an hour at 7:30 today. He will be on this show as he is in each and every Thursday morning here on KCMO. We will certainly get to you, your calls, your reaction, your response, no matter where you were yesterday. You will be, as you are every day, but certainly on a day like today, part of the conversation. On KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, 710 AM, and stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio. 6:18. As Kansas City mourns in the wake of yesterday's tragedy that was not just obviously a local story, it was not a national story, it was a national story. It was a worldwide story. I had Sky News and other media outlets in Australia reaching out yesterday looking for information, looking for interviews, looking for anything and everything they could latch onto to try to get information on what was happening here in Kansas City. And we thought, and we knew, that Kansas City was going to be center of the sports world yesterday and the sports universe. We knew that. Super Bowl parade, second straight. You heard the guys yesterday talking about a three-peat in 2024. And instead, Kansas City became not just the center of the sports world, but the center of the news world. And suddenly we found ourselves in an all too familiar position where we're sitting here and reacting and talking about a horrific incident. An incident that I can't say right now is avoidable. I don't know that. Maybe you do. I don't know that. But I do know this much. Enough's enough. I do know that as a community, whether we're talking about going down the Crown Center, whether we're talking about Power and Light, whether it's Union Station for a parade, whether it's a potentially new Royals baseball stadium downtown, How do you think John Sherman's feeling about all that this morning? No matter what, the city has itself a tremendous problem. And it's something we've been talking about since 2020. When the gangbangers were shooting each other up, and we said, hey, if this thing is not gotten under control as soon as possible, it will spread to areas and parts of town and places that will impact all of us. I don't care if you live in the nicest neighborhoods in any part of this metro on either side of the state line. Any of us could have been and were down there at Union Station yesterday. We're along that parade route. People of all demographics, all backgrounds, all income levels were down there to unify and celebrate one thing, the Kansas City Chiefs. And we can't even do that without feeling safe. That's what makes this as tragic, as frustrating as anything else. Now, Mayor Lucas did address the media. This was immediately after the shooting, the first press conference. There were two yesterday held by the mayor and the police chief. Here are the first comments from the mayor of Kansas City in the wake of yesterday's tragedy down at the rally.
I'm heartbroken. First of all, I'm praying for the victims and the families impacted. I start with them. I'm incredibly upset, disappointed. I was there with my wife. I was there with my mother. We never would have thought that we, along with Chiefs players, along with fans, hundreds of thousands of people, would be forced to run for our safety today. I think that I'll let the investigation shake out before coming to any further conclusions, but I think the initial response absolutely is anger. You know, we have done a number of these now, and this is a day that a lot of people look forward to, something they remember for a lifetime. And what they shouldn't have to remember is the threat of gun violence, marring a day like this, injuring them and their families. This morning, I was actually thinking about bringing my child, as many people in Kansas City did. And I don't want us to have to, in our country, for every big event, think about a concern of being shot. As the chief noted, we had a lot of law enforcement officers there today. They did exceptional and outstanding work, and I will second that again. Because on your timeline point, I was inside of Union Station. We heard something. A number of us start running. And I see a stream of officers going the exact other direction, in, with guns drawn, ready to address danger. And that was the situation throughout. People who responded absolutely immediately. But I wish that we lived in a world where they wouldn't have to do that. I wish we live in a world where we wouldn't have to see incidents like that. But I'm as heartbroken as anybody. We will do a full and thorough investigation. I hope that we bring whoever this is to justice, and we will continue to try to make sure that we can be as safe as possible. However, when you have people who decide to bring guns to events, when you have people who are deciding to try to mar events, celebratory ones like this one, all of us start to become members of this club that none of us want to be a part of, which is those who have experienced mass shootings. I hope for Kansas City this is one of the last times we experience them.
Mayor Quinton Lucas yesterday, immediately following the shooting, those were his first public statements after that shooting took place. Do you think this is the last? Do you have confidence in leadership in this town and in this county that this will be the end? I don't. And I don't say that with great joy. I don't say that for it to be overtly political. It's not intended to be. Just, I'm looking at a track record here. I've got a prosecutor, and, we'll see what she does in this case. But last I checked, nothing's been done about what happened at Crown Center with shots fired there a few weeks ago. Thankfully, nobody was hurt in that situation. But goodness gracious, you got shots being fired at Crown Center. Not clear anything's been done on that front, John.
Yeah, the lack of confidence stems more from this didn't just happen yesterday, right?
Yes.
Right, and this has been an ongoing thing that seems almost inevitable.
Yes.
And so it won't be fixed overnight or, hey, we got the guys and they're locked up.
No.
No, that's not it. That's not the end of it, right?
It's not. And listen, I do, obviously, we know, and I even believe that Gene Peters Baker, our county prosecutor, is going to do the right thing here. But it's not just about these three individuals in custody. It is about a continuing situation in this town where the most violent people and the most dangerous people have zero fear of law enforcement or prosecution in Kansas City and across Jackson County, but in this case, in Kansas City. There's a reason that you don't see, Kansas City, Missouri, for people that don't know, spans 3 counties. Obviously dips in the Platte, takes over a large portion of Clay on a population basis, and then, of course, the bulk of it in Jackson. But in 3 counties, it is one of those 3 counties where Kansas City, Missouri has a footprint where this issue continues day after day after day when it comes to violent crime, and that is in Jackson. So I can't sit here the day after another horrific situation takes place in this town, this time in front of the entire world, and say I feel like this is going to be nipped in the bud. I don't. I want to feel that way. As human beings, we inherently want to believe in our leaders. We elect them. We give them power. We see them in our neighborhoods. We see them on TV. We do all of that. But I can't do that this morning. And I don't know if you can at 913-408-7957, but I just can't. Victor's on KCMO Talk Radio. He's out of Parkville. Victor, good morning.
Good morning. I didn't want to say anything because you wanted to keep it, light and, let the blood dry, as you said. But you know what? With Mayor Lucas, this is not gun violence. This is criminal behavior. This is gang violence. There were plenty of CCP people down there. I've got a CCP. I know plenty of people that have them. We are not the ones pulling out our firearms and shooting them off. This is not gun violence. This is criminal behavior. And this was his city on full display for the entire nation and the world to see. I lay this almost at his feet, but I also lay it at the feet of the prosecutor who has refused to prosecute these criminals and to lock them up, get them off the streets, and get them out of our society. This is criminal behavior. This is not gun behavior. You cannot blame an inanimate object. This is a personal problem.
Victor, thank you very much for the thoughts. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too, sir.
913-408-7957. The mayor will be here in 1 hour at 7:30. Today is really about a fact-finding mission with our guests. Whether it's Mayor Lucas, we're working on Governor Parson for 8:30 today. There will be time to have the policy debate, but we still need all the information from the mayor coming up in an hour. So we'll do that and much more. We're also going to hear from you. 913-408-7957 on the day after on 95.7 FM KCMO. Got to be careful in the wake of yesterday's tragedy here in Kansas City. 1 person dead, 22 wounded. We also know, of course, Children's Mercy Hospital has confirmed it treated 12 patients, 11 kids. All the children, thank goodness, pray the Lord, expected to recover. Their ages range from 6 to 15. 9 of those patients did have gunshot wounds, but you have to be careful of people who are such whores that they will take something like this within hours, heck, minutes, and spin it in a way that somehow makes it about them, benefits them, is game planning and trying to lay the foundation for some type of future notoriety. And I'm telling you, there were, as I put on social media yesterday, I put this on my X account. I said, even people who I may disagree with in terms of the way we look at the world, they were embarrassing themselves. It was below them, and it was all over the place. It was a cesspool. 913-408-7957. I think we might have just seen some of that. Paul in Kansas City, go ahead.
Hey, Pete. Yeah, I just saw Manny Arbaca, the Jackson County legislator, on CNN, telling CNN he's going to come after my guns here in Jackson County.
Wait, hold on. Slow down. Manny Abarca, the Jackson County legislator, who has been on this show before, was just on CNN moments ago.
Yes, he told CNN, he said, I called the county lawyer and said I want gun reform on my desk on Monday.
What a huckster.
It was terrible. It was disgusting. Another point, too, Pete, is the Crown Center shooting cover-up. We never saw the videos. We never saw, in New York, we saw the videos of the illegal immigrants beating the police officer. These weren't white guys from Cass County in Belton, Missouri. We need to know full disclosure of the Crown Center shooting. We need to see the video, and we need to know who did this shooting. Were these guys yesterday in the system before and let out? We need to know all facts. We don't need to know a cover-up like the Crown Center shooting. It just disappeared. The Crown Center shooting just disappeared. We don't know who did the shooting, what their background was, nothing. But illegal immigrants, we'll put that right out there quick. So let's have some equal justice for these guys. Let's have full transparency on this shooting.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you, Paul, and that's what we're desperately waiting for. I don't know why it takes so long in a situation like this to get us names, backgrounds, criminal history, if there is any. Something tells me, if I was a betting man, there might be. But once again, unlike others, I'm going to talk about this with the facts that we have. But wow, for CNN to put on one of our Jackson County legislators, and I've got CNN on in the studio, I'll flip over to it right now, to put on one of our Jackson County legislators and to start screaming immediately about, gun control. He's going to demand legislation on his desk. Okay, Manny. I mean, please, people in this community laugh at you. I mean, that's ridiculous. And it's funny you bring up Manny Abarca, because I even sent him a tweet yesterday because he was losing his mind on social media. I responded to one of his insane tweets. He said to a state senator here in Cass County, Rick Bratton, he said, Rick Bratton, if you had been doing your job, the mother who died would be alive today. What an insane comment to make. What gun law? And I can't believe we have to talk about this. But what gun law, without any facts, does Manny Abarca or anybody in this town want to pass today that prevents yesterday from happening without even having the facts of what guns were confiscated, how they were gotten, who these individuals are, what their backgrounds are? I mean, I get it in a sick way, but I understand. Some of these people just have to fit a narrative. Facts be damned. But holy smokes, this is one of the all-time stretches, the way I've seen people in this town react over the last 12 to 18 hours. I understand being emotional. I understand being frustrated. Heck, I'll tell you what, yesterday, I'm driving home after being here till 5:30 in the afternoon, watching this coverage nonstop all day, every day. And I'll admit, I got to a stoplight last night. I wanted to get flowers for the girls. I like to make it a tradition where, and I started this last year, my girls are 5 and 2, where I get them each a single rose on Valentine's Day. And I didn't want to not do that on the way home last night. So I did it. I stopped. I got a single rose. Yes, I got a bouquet for Kate as well. But I got to a stoplight yesterday as I was turning in to pick up these flowers. And, I didn't bawl, but for a guy that doesn't really cry a lot, I did, shed a couple tears. And the way that some people are able to just take something like this on a day that this town is very emotional, we're all emotional, and just immediately go to their political talking points. It's like they're sick machines. It's beyond disturbing. 913-408-7957 is our studio line here on KCMO Talk Radio. Let's go to Mike. He's in Kansas City. Mike, what's happening?
Yeah, Mayor Lucas, Manny Barkas, all these people knew within minutes, the police arresting the people who they were. We're in a spin cycle right now. And when you hear all this aggressive thing about going after Elmer Fudd and his guns and all this stuff like that, you know that this is a diversion. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the thing's going to come out on this, but we're in the middle of a spin cycle right now. And not much different than, Jesus of Nashville when the Democrat transsexual killed the children, or the situation down in Texas over the weekend. Whenever the perpetrator is somebody who's going to embarrass the left, this is what they do. You know that if it was a MAGA heterosexual Christian white male supporter, you would have known within seconds who the perp was.
We'll see.
And it's sad to say that where we live.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm watching this like you are, Mike. Thank you. Wes in Gladstone, what's happening, Wes? You're on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Yeah, Pete, yesterday I was laying in bed listening to you talk about the parade, and for whatever reason, I had a thought. I hope someone doesn't start shooting, because I remembered they hadn't caught the Crown Center shooters yet. Let's go back to the Independence Mall thing. Two groups are there. They start yelling at each other, and guns are pulled out. But all is not lost. I'm sure you've seen the video of the two individuals who chased the gunman, one of the gunmen down and tackled him.
Mm-hmm.
That shows you that in this country, people will rise to the occasion. Okay? I think we need to talk about that, okay?
Yeah.
I bet that wasn't the only... They probably were not the only people who did something heroic like that. Okay,
yeah.
So there is a good point to this story. The other point is, you have said that it's going to affect everybody. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going down there anymore, man. I'm just not. I'm not trying to scare people off, but until they start doing something about this. And, when I was watching the press conference, first thing I told my wife, I said, where's the DA? DA should have been there saying, these people are going down. But she wasn't there. There's your problem. And trying to point to the guns is just not a good thing. Hey, I'll see you at Politics in a Pint today, okay?
Oh, great. We'll see you out there, Wes. It's going to be a good time.
Yes.
Awesome.
You will keep rolling, brother.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate you. That is tonight, Bill Eigel, Tiffin Jays, and Lee Summit. 913-408-7957. We'll keep hearing from you. Mayor Lucas scheduled to be here at 7:35. Some of you are saying, all right, let me get to this. I got to get to this. Another radio show. There is a lot happening on the text line and on the phones that we'll get to right now and get to with you right after the break on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio, and stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app. 7:05 as we roll through the aftermath of what was supposed to be an incredible day for Kansas City, celebrating another Super Bowl turns tragic. 1 dead, 22 injured, suffering gunshot wounds. 3 are in custody in a story that, we thought this town would be the center of the sports universe yesterday. We never thought it would be the center of the news universe. And sadly, that's what it's turned into. Wanted to check in with a good friend of ours, a good friend of Kansas City's, Harris Faulkner, who wanted to make sure, and we wanted to make sure that her voice was heard here in this town on this day. Harris, good morning. Thank you for checking in with us.
Thank you for the opportunity to just be with you in spirit. It was so funny. I had finished up work yesterday and said, well, I'm going to turn on the parade. And no one has any more red on than I do on Chiefs Day. And Chiefs Day to me is every time they're on. And my heart just broke a couple of hours in when the headlines changed from fun and just everything that we're watching, and Travis Kelce not making any sense and singing off key and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no breath. And I hit my knees. And I'm praying. And I know that, we have lost one. I know how mightily they tried to save her. We will read about that more. The mom who perished. And the 22, nearly half of them were children at Children's Mercy. I have to say, though, I have never felt more proud to have lived in a city and be included in something called Chiefs Kingdom than I did in the aftermath yesterday. Everybody was well-spoken. And the representative from Children's Mercy, I could feel every word she said. It was truth, it was necessary, and it was kind. And I'm proud to be considered part of this family. And I wish that, there were some words that would be bigger than mine. And that wish always comes true when I turn to the Bible. Mm-hmm. Isaiah 41, verse 10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. God bless you, Kansas City. I love you.
Well, thank you, Harris. We so appreciate you. And, I was thinking about you yesterday and how much you embraced this community, how much this community obviously embraced you during your tenure here in Kansas City. And it's amazing. I mean, this town leaves an impact on a lot of people that come and go. And I know that you certainly feel like an adopted Kansas Cityan, even though your career has gone obviously in nothing but positive directions.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And as a parent, that what bonds you as family are the tough times and the good times. And I had a tremendous amount of great times, personally and professionally, in Kansas City. But I'm with you on this morning. Mm-hmm. I would say no one that I have run into on the East Coast since this happened yesterday has not first said, oh, we're thinking about Kansas City. I mean, I know many of these people have never been to Kansas City. But there is something that sports can do, too. And I'm proud of the organization that is, responding. Each player on their own. I saw Marquez Valdez-Scalding's tweet yesterday about how do I get in touch with the families of the children who are at Children's Mercy and how do I help? And that's just such a huge sign of who Kansas Cityans are. And I'm thrilled that the world gets to see all of you at your best during the worst. To see your spirit during the challenge and the tragedy. So you have friends that you've never met in places that have never met you or been to Kansas City or probably even thought about going there. But because of the Chiefs and because of the people that they see and how you handle tough moments, they want to know you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. In times of tragedy, I always say as a news anchor, people ask me, how do you get through the things that actually touch you? And I said, well, I'm touched by all of it. I mean, Sandy Hook touched everybody. And I always say the same thing. Well, it just reminds me of how small the world is and how necessary it is that we treat each other as though we're going to know one another for the rest of time. Mm-hmm. Have space in our hearts for integrity and dignity and forgiveness and kindness. Even when some people still wanted to cheer for the 49ers, I understood. I do. I know there always is going to be another team, but yeah, I mean, we can be in the same venues together. So absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, and I know you probably don't have a lot of people who pray on your air, but that really is who I am, and Kansas City knows that. Mm-hmm. And I could not let this day pass without letting the city that I love know how loved you are. Across the board, across the world. When they played in Europe this summer, I mean, I had coworkers who were saying, I'm thinking about getting tickets to the Kansas City game and traveling. And I'm like, only a New Yorker who's not even a Chiefs fan would hop on a plane. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs and Kansas City are inspo.
Well, that is so well said, Harris. And that's why you are still a beloved figure in this town all these years later. And we so appreciate you reaching out. Thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts and giving us some of your time. And We'll be watching today at 10 o'clock on the Faulkner Focus as we do each and every day. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Pete. God bless. Bye-bye.
There you go. Outstanding. We always appreciate Harris Faulkner. And she's right. You know, one thing you noticed yesterday, and you even heard this on the stage, I've been fortunate enough to work in different cities and different towns and kind of see the way that teams interact with fan bases. And I have never seen a winning team like these Chiefs interact with a fan base like Chiefs Kingdom and connect with a fan base like this team does. And it's very unique. I mean, you know, I've seen the Oklahoma Sooners, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, Texas teams during my time down there. And, you know, I've seen the Yankees and I've seen, you know, the Knicks and teams like that. But I've never seen it's such a unique relationship. And then you saw a lot of that play out on social media after the tragedy from yesterday. And those stories are continuing to unfold. Trey Smith sharing his WWE belt with a young kid and trying to console him in the wake of what happened yesterday. I mean, there are stories like that all over the place, and more of them will continue to come out. Mayor Lucas is scheduled to be here at 7:35 in 20 minutes. As he is each and every Thursday. We don't have a confirmation on it yet, but he's here every Thursday. I have not heard otherwise. I am planning on him being here. Next, I want to play one of the most powerful moments from yesterday that I thought was a joyous part of the celebration, and I think now's the time that we all need it here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. My apologies on not getting to this right before the break, but obviously we just had the mayor of Kansas City on. A lot of moving parts today. Harris Faulkner started the hour, of course, from Fox News. And by the way, I have gotten confirmation. I'll be on Harris's show today on Fox at 10:15 Central Time is the plan to join Harris there on Fox News. So it is, as we've been doing all week, your opportunity to win this Nikos Sports Chiefs Super Bowl official memorabilia football. Seventh caller to 913-408-7957. Seventh caller right now to 913-408-7957. There's only 5,000 of these, limited edition. And yes, officially licensed Chiefs Super Bowl football. It's got, you know, images of Mahomes, Kelsey. It is absolutely outstanding and a great gift. And there's only 5,000 of these that are going to be available from Nikos Sports. That's nikcosports.com. So seventh caller right now will win that football. Sean Smith, Jackson County legislator, he's on KCMO. Sean, I understand you were at the parade yesterday. You actually spent some time on the players' bus as well. So what was that like, and what was your takeaway from everything you saw yesterday? Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. Yeah, we were front and center for the ceremony. Things were fantastic, obviously. And then we had actually, after things were wrapped up, had just kind of gone into Union Station, and I was separated from my girlfriend. And all of a sudden, there was a swarm of players and players' families just trying to head for the east exit, which is where I happened to be near. So I had to swim upstream against them and go find my girl, and then we were able to get out. They directed us. The police force just basically said, just get on any bus, and they stuffed us on a bus that happened to have some players, a city council member, and people were nervous. After a little while, the police officers came on board, checked to make sure that everybody that was on the bus was authorized to be there or supposed to be there. And then they took us back to Arrowhead after they had checked the bus. So it was, I will say the law enforcement did an incredible job at doing what they could to take care of those of us that were in that area. It seemed relatively orderly, but certainly chaotic and upsetting for a lot of people.
What was it like being on that bus with some of the players in the moments following the shooting? And obviously no one knew exactly what was going on, but what was the reaction like? What was the conversation, if any, on that bus?
Yeah, a lot of people just trying to connect with loved ones to let them know that they were safe. Some conversation, obviously people being a little bit nervous, but lots of mutual support and everybody just being happy to be there and help take care of each other. It really did seem like everybody was ready, willing, and able to just pitch in a hand however they could to try to comfort people that were upset.
You're seeing some stories now of players just helping or at least consoling kids and folks who were really struggling yesterday. I don't know if you saw any of that firsthand or if you've heard any stories that maybe haven't been reported publicly yet on that front.
On our bus, there were players, there were non-players, there were men and women. I didn't see any children on our bus, but I certainly saw just a great deal of respect for the guys that are on the team. They were clearly, ready and willing to console the people that were on the bus that were really upset, handling the nerves. Obviously, it was quite the nerve-wracking experience. And you're right, we didn't know everything that was going on. One thing from our bus vantage point, we could see what appeared to be bullet holes in a glass building that was behind Union Station. So they were noticing that. I don't know if those bullet holes had been there for a while or if they were new, but bottom line was people were very, very observant and very, very willing to pitch in, be empathetic with each other and try to help everybody just get through it. So
who are some of those players, just to give them shout outs? Do you know by chance who some of them were?
I wasn't looking at a roster and taking names, to be honest.
No, that's totally fine. Listen, I understand, it's funny. We all know Kelsey, Mahomes, some of the bigger names and whatnot, Chris Jones. But I understand, a lot of them we know by number because they've got helmets on all day. So I totally get it when we're watching them, at least.
Exactly right. And I do know that I heard them checking in on some of the higher profile guys that were maybe, a little bit intoxicated. They were circulating messages, making sure that really they were just making sure that everybody was okay. I'll say this too so we had county staff who was responsible for our well-being while we were there. Obviously, they had a plan to have us leave on a normal basis, and when things got abnormal, they did a great job, too, at checking in, making sure that everybody was accounted for. So I think people handled it well. It's a terrible, terrible thing that happened, but we just have to
What do you make? I mean, we need all the facts. The mayor, we just talked to him about that. We need the facts before we draw any conclusions out of this. But, I mean, you've got colleagues jumping on national networks screaming about things that, frankly, we can't possibly talk about or debate yet because we don't have all the facts on what happened here. What do you make of that in the next minute?
I do think it's very irresponsible to start to talk about solutions before we have all the facts. Those will come out, I think, very, very rapidly within a matter of probably just a few days, maybe a couple weeks. So we can have a logical discussion about what could have prevented this, what sort of measures we need to take to keep our community safer. The fact is, we know that in Kansas City, we have a tremendous, tremendous crime problem. That's not new, and it didn't start yesterday. And we absolutely have to address that. At the county level, I feel like people being aware that there's a prosecutor race coming up in November, finding a good candidate who's really going to work to enforce the law and keep criminals off our street, I think is going to be a key issue in the November election. But then the other things that we can do, like investing in the police department, honestly, showing respect to those guys that put their lives on the line. Because one of the reasons our officer headcount's down is because of, the fact that they've gotten such a rough time from the public. And that has to stop. We have to respect those guys.
Sean Smith, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Pete.
Jackson County legislator, also running for Congress, 5th District. News coming up in 2 minutes. We've got more with you. Governor of Missouri Mike Parson at 8:30 on 95.7 FM KCMO. 9:05, morning after. What was supposed to be one of the all-time great memorable days for the hundreds of thousands of folks that gathered across downtown Kansas City to celebrate another Super Bowl for a team that, yes, is a dynasty, turns into tragedy, turns into heartbreak and heartache with one person getting killed in a senseless shooting that took place just moments after the rally ended on the west side of Union Station and resulted in nearly 24 folks suffering gunshot wounds, including several children between the ages of 6 and 15. The good news from the mayor of Kansas City this morning, if there is any, is that everybody made it through the night, and that is obviously a sign of things trending, hopefully, in the right direction from here. talking about some of the heroes from yesterday. Paul Contreras on that list, Steve in Kansas City. What else you got for us there?
Hey, Pete, man, this is now. I want to focus the light on the heroes, man. On Fox and Friends this morning, there's a Wichita guy, Trey Fink, who is already, giving his account of what happened. I mean, I want to completely disagree with the mayor and the chief of police. This is exactly what Kansas City was all about yesterday. You had ER nurses on KCTV5 doing CPR immediately, saving lives. You had two guys tackling the perp, and this could have been unimaginably worse. I mean, it sounds strange to say it, but we were so fortunate and lucky yesterday that AR-15 or the AK comes flying out of that guy's hands. No one knows what could have happened. Those two guys are the woman's girlfriend takes the gun. I mean, there's so many things that happened to the good that I know we're going to focus on the life of the woman who passed away, and that's terrible. But this is a situation we probably need metal detectors next year. Lawrence had the same problem with this. They had a shooting down on Mass after one of these concerts. They're going to have to maybe get some musical acts like Nelly or Tech Nine that are a little more kind of parade friendly. We're going to have to kind of modify our behavior here. It's just a situation where.
Well, what I would say, Stephen, thank you. What I would say is that when you say this is not Kansas City, or this is Kansas City, after Stacey Graves, the police chief, said this.
This is not Kansas City.
I understand what you're pointing out there. In many ways, the best of Kansas City yesterday, the Chiefs, and what is the ultimate unifying factor in this town and in this region, collided with the worst of Kansas City, and that is the violent crime. I was doing a radio hit this morning with our friend Joe Piscopo in New York. I did that at about 5:40 this morning. I did back-to-back radio interviews before coming on the air at 6. I did Joe Piscopo, who's been on this show before, out of New York, and then we did McGraw-Milhaven's show in St. Louis on KTRS. And McGraw knew a little bit more of this than, obviously, Joe did. But, what I explained to Joe is Kansas City, obviously, is not going to get the attention of a Chicago. It's not even going to get the attention of a St. Louis. But those of us in this town know that Kansas City has suffered an incredibly violent few years. We are weeks removed from the most violent year in Kansas City, Missouri history, with 183 homicides. It's really been the underbelly of all the great things that have happened in this town, and we're starting year 7 of this show. I can't believe it here in a couple of months. We have seen an incredible run. I mean, I came here having no idea what was to come. And I'm not just talking about 6 straight AFC championships and 3 Super Bowls. I'm talking about what we're seeing when it comes to new airports, right? Overall, good development, a region that is growing. And yeah, we talk about the problems every day, and there's plenty of those. But overall, it has been a great half-decade run for this region at large. And the underbelly of it all, the one thing that's kind of stymied the entire thing for those that actually care and want to pay attention, is the violent crime. A record year for homicides in 2020. Okay, that was a bad year for everybody in the country. But while most major cities were trending down the last couple of years in homicides, Kansas City was not. And we just broke the 2020 record in 2023. And the only thing that can ruin the well-being and the good nature of a day like yesterday is the thing that has stymied this town and been the thorn in the side of this town for, going on many, many years, but certainly for the last few. And that's what you saw yesterday. 913-408-7957. John's on KCMO. Understand, John, you were down there yesterday. What'd you see? Good morning. Appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, Pete. Had a couple of personal appointments in the morning, and my daughter had a bad night, and kids were excited to go, and we didn't get there until 1:30. So we saw off to the estates to the right, to the west side. Obviously, confetti started flying. My daughter was having fun. My son's in the crowd somewhere. His friend's in the crowd right next to me as well, having fun. 3 girls come up next to me, and I'm a Packers fan, so I'm like, this might be the last time they do it. All this other stuff. It might be Packers Jets next year. All this other stuff, having fun. And 3 girls wanted to take pictures wearing my cheesehead hat. So after that happened, I look up and it looks like freaking just fireworks going off. But I'm a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, former Army intelligence analyst. After the second or third one, I grab my daughter, who's 9, and pull her into me. I look over and make sure my son's friend's good. He's staying there. He said he's fine. He's trying to run off. I'm like, stay by me.
How far are you from this at this point?
I'm seeing the shooter. Like you said, you're gonna be there at 2:00. I could be there with you. Show you what happened. I'm seeing the shooter, and when he starts popping off shots, the crowd disperses. Absolute stampede.
Mm-hmm.
And I see one dude go down. He got hit in the right ankle. That was probably closest to it. And next thing I know, I see crowds dispersing, stampedes happening. And next thing I know, I see a pile of people jumping on this one victim. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I got the crowd control barrier in front of me. I rip the sucker open. I walk up on him, and I'm just like, being a veteran in Iraq and Afghanistan, I'm like, this one is beyond me saving. Immediately, the plainclothes EMTs come running in and start rendering CPR. I want to make sure everybody understands this. Lisa Lopez Galvin is an angel of the Kansas City Chiefs, period. She should be recognized. She should be considered honorable angel of the Kansas City Chiefs. As soon as I realize what's going on, I look up and I see a gentleman, probably about 20, on the ground. And he's going into shock. It's her son. I go over to him real quick. I tell him to stay down because I look at his ankle. It's broken. Mm-hmm. Some people are telling me it was shot. When I was looking at it, standing over him, it looked like it got broken during the stampede. Mm-hmm. I don't fully know. I tell him to stay down. The EMT's got her, and his sister comes over too. And I just, yeah.
Well, listen, John. I know you got a lot of emotion. I can tell. I can hear it in your voice. Even though, as you know, you spend time in Iraq and Afghanistan. But listen, man, it's powerful stuff. And I know that you were there, and I'm hopefully, most importantly, glad that right now you and your kids are okay. But listen, you're going to have to be talking to the kids, I'm sure, for a while about what they saw and what happened.
Yeah, now my 9-year-old daughter, she's witnessed her first homicide. My freshman year son witnessed his first shooting when my freshman year of high school was 9/11. And I want to say this to everybody. Once he started shooting, everybody was able to track him down all the way to finally Paul Contreras and the cops that put him in cuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a pistol. That was not an Armor-Light rifle, as Democrats would call it, an assault rifle. That was not an Armor-Light rifle. That was a pistol that was being fired. Mm-hmm. I know the repetition. I knew it by the sound, all that other stuff. And it's just one idiot. I had a fellow former coworker tell me that I can't believe this is turning into Kansas City. I was like, no, it's not Kansas City. Kansas City is full of patriotic, chief-loving, fun-loving, great human beings. This is just one idiot that ruined it for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, thank you, John. Thanks for sharing the story. We appreciate you, brother, and thanks for the service.
Yeah, God bless and hold your family tight, buddy.
There you go. 913-408-7957. As we roll through the 9 o'clock hour, 9:15, Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. Stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app.